Hey, I'm Bethany Wallace, and I want to talk to you briefly about how to avoid dominating a discussion, especially like a group discussion or in a group meeting setting, how to avoid domination. And also, if you're the leader or the facilitator of that discussion, how you can prevent that from happening. So, first, I'll speak directly to people who tend to dominate. Um, a lot of times we tend to dominate a discussion or interrupt others or things like that because not because we are rude people or just totally inconsiderate of others, disrespectful or anything like that, but it's because we're just passionate. We're passionate about the subject matter. And so we don't think before we speak sometimes, and we don't realize how long we've been speaking. Another reason that sometimes we tend to dominate is because we genuinely believe that what we have to say is more important than what other people have to say. And we just feel the urge like we've got to get it out. I would urge you, if you catch yourself doing that, to consider that maybe it's an ego problem and something that you need to look at. Because in a group setting, even if you believe you're right and the three other people there are wrong or something like that, it's critical that you share the platform and give other people a chance to speak and voice their opinions. And it's also important, if you want to come off as someone who does consider others' opinions, who's tolerant and accepting and thoughtful, that you take more time to listen than to speak. That's just the best rule of thumb. So if you tend to dominate, just try to keep an eye on how much time you're talking and make sure that you listen way more than you speak. Also, just a good rule of thumb in most meetings or settings of like group discussion is if you spend more than 3 or 4 minutes of a soliloquy, then it becomes like a presentation or a sermon or a speech, and it's less of a discussion. So try to monitor your time. Almost every platform for recording, if you're in a virtual meeting, has a little clock somewhere in the corner of the screen, or at least on your monitor or your phone, you'll see the time. So keep an eye on that timestamp. Just glance at it when you start talking. And after it's been 3 minutes, you need to start winding it up. And that is really not just so you can police yourself diligently, but it's so that you can be courteous to others. And I really feel like as people and humans in the workplace or in other settings, we just need to be really mindful of that so that we are being loving and truly inviting and inclusive. Another thing to address is, what if you're the leader or the facilitator and you notice that someone is dominating? What do you do? Well, first of all, let's back up, because I would encourage you to think about prevention and not damage control. So if you have a group meeting that's coming up, that and you know that 5 people are going to attend, it is best to make your expectations or guidelines very clear on the outset. And so you might want to send an email in advance prior to the meeting that just says, hey, I'm really looking forward to this meeting. I want to hear all of your thoughts. I want to answer all questions, but I want to lay out a couple of rules that will just keep us moving. One of those is, please don't share or talk or dominate the discussion for more than X number of minutes. Or like keep your questions to under 1 minute, or keep your comments to under 2 minutes, or whatever. You set your own parameters there. But if you lay out those guidelines in advance, then when someone violates that rule or guideline or parameter and steps outside, then you have given yourself permission to pull them back in, to remind them of the boundary. And so whether you want to interrupt and say, hey, I'm sorry, but I just want to make sure that other people have time to share, but I really do appreciate your thoughts. And if you still have that question or that concern after we've given some other people a chance to share, then we'll come back to you. And that can feel very awkward if you're the leader or the facilitator. It can feel unkind or rude, but just keep in mind that that's really your responsibility. It's under your umbrella of responsibility to be the one to keep things moving, to make sure that everyone has a voice, and to make sure that everyone feels invited to share. And when you do have a dominator in the group, it's important to address that dominator. And sometimes if it's going to be like a repeated meeting, like let's say you have a weekly meeting or even a monthly meeting with some of your staff, and you keep having this person who does this over and over, and you think they have goodwill about it, but then how do you address them? One of the things that you can do is just wait until after the first time that happens and address it privately. And say, hey, I'm sorry, I probably didn't make it really clear, but it's really important that we all limit our sharing or our comments to just 2 or 3 minutes, because we only have an hour for that meeting and we want to make sure that everybody's voice is heard. So I apologize for not making that expectation clear on the front end. So I just wanted to come to you privately to address it, because I don't think that you had any bad intentions by talking for 20 minutes during the meeting, but I think it made some people uncomfortable and also sort of limited the time that other people had to share. So we weren't really able to move forward as much as a team. And that's what we really need to be doing, is making forward progress and getting to the solution. So I don't know if you're on which side you're on, if you're the leader who's struggling with addressing it, or if you're the dominator and you're like, oh geez, I do that all the time. But I would just encourage you to sort of take some of these things to heart, watch the timestamp, and don't hesitate to set boundaries. And another thing is, lastly, if you're the dominator, it is okay if you're aware that you tend to do that. It's perfectly okay to ask the facilitator or leader on the outset, before the meeting begins, say, do you have like a recommended period of time for shares? Like, how long do you want me to talk if I want to chime in? How long is it appropriate for me to talk? Like 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and you can say, I just want to make sure that I'm meeting your expectations and that I don't dominate the group. Even just by putting yourself out there and asking that question, first of all, it shows that you're really mindful and aware, which is a great quality to have. And secondly, it shows that you are a concerned person about including others, that you're collaborative, that you're inclusive, that you're warm and welcoming, and that you're accepting of others, that you want to hear what others have to say. So that means you're open and you're teachable. So you demonstrate some great soft skills just by asking, what are the parameters here, so I can make sure that I stay within them. And then also you're going to bring it to your own mind, or call attention to it mentally by asking that question. So I promise you, if you ask that question before the meeting starts, you will be way less likely to veer off into left field and, tell everybody everything that you know on the subject for 25 minutes while people are falling asleep in their coffee. Hopefully this will help you. And if you need more soft skills training, help building awareness, knowing which actions to take to grow, and then walking through those action steps, I'm glad to help you through some soft skills training and coaching. And you can reach out to me at BethanyWallaceCo.com.